from here. Our view on Mr. Assange, our view on Mr. Assange is that he's been charged with serious criminal conduct in the United States.
Charged with anything. I just want to know whether or not you, the State Department, regardless of any charges that he faces, believe that he is a journalist or he is something else.
Again, I'm not here to offer a specific assessment. What I will say is that he's been charged with a serious crime, with serious criminal conduct in the United States that has seriously put in harm's way U.S. national security, and that continues to be the case. Go ahead, Sam.
You refer to WikiLeaks allegedly damaging U.S. national security. People might remember that WikiLeaks came to prominence because they released the collateral murder video. And what that showed was U.S. military mowing down Reuters reporters, workers in Iraq. Reuters repeatedly asked the U.S. government to disclose such information about those killings, and the U.S. government repeatedly refused to do so. Only then did we know what happened, that the U.S. helicopter gunship mowed down these Reuters workers through the collateral murder video. Are you saying that disclosure of such criminality by the U.S. government impinges U.S. national security?
I was answering a question about Mr. Assange.
Yes.
I was not offering an assessment on anything else.
But you said that WikiLeaks damaged U.S. national security. Did it do so by exposing U.S. criminality?
I'm not going to parse or get into specifics. What I will just reiterate again is that Mr. Assange has been charged with criminal conduct for his role in the largest compromise of classified information in our nation's history. That compromise has seriously harmed U.S. national security to the benefit of our adversaries.
But you can't be specific as to
I don't have anything else to add on this.
Just another dimension to this is that, of course, you're going after Assange. The U.S. government, the DOJ, is going after Assange because of the disclosures pertaining to Iraq and Cablegate and so on. This is separate from the whole Russia Gate situation. I don't know if you're familiar with a recent report by James Bamford in The Nation. He's coming out with a book. He's a cybersecurity expert, written a book about the NSA. Piece is entitled Trump's Campaign's Collusion with Israel. Subtitle, While U.S. media fixated on Russian interference in the 2016 election, an Israeli secret agent's campaign to influence the outcome went unreported. What Bamford is alleging is that Israel was actually the conduit to the Trump administration, that their unit 8200.
I'm just going to stop you right there. I don't think that's true. I also don't have anything else to offer.
I'd like to know if the State Department has any assessment on this, because what this means is that everybody was obsessed over Russia's collusion with Trump for years, and what Bamford is reporting through his sources, and he's a very serious NSA reporter. He wrote a book about the NSA, and he's just come out with another book on espionage. Is that Israel was actually the conduit to the Trump administration.
I don't have anything to offer on that other than...
Could I get something in writing?
I don't have anything to offer on that other than in the United States, people can write and publish whatever they want.
I'd love to know
the
if the
benefits
State
of
Department has an
one of the
assessment.
benefits of the First Amendment. I'm going to work the room now. Your colleagues have still their hands up.
I'd really
Nick,
like to know
you
if
had
the
your
State
hand up
Department has
patiently.
assessment on
Go
that.
ahead.
I'd be happy to get an email. Thank you.
Nick, go ahead. You had your hand up patiently.
So people can report whatever they want unless they're Assange.
Yeah.
I should have said that.
I was going to say, and that, folks, is why that folks is why Sam Husseini will not be invited to the State Department holiday party.
Wow.
We have a little bit of feedback. I'm thinking maybe we should all mute if you're not talking. Sorry, I don't know where it's coming from. So let's see. Bill, I think it might have been from yours. It happens though. Let's see. Okay. Let me remove this. Okay. So I'm so happy to have Sam here tonight. Gosh, how do I introduce Sam? I've got a couple of photos here. One of my favorites. Well, Sam, Sam works at the Center. Hold on. Institute for Public Accuracy since 1998, right, Sam?
Yes, that's true, but I'm speaking today purely in my own personal capacity.
Right. Okay. Great. Great. And Sam, I've got to show this picture. I thought this was so cool. I had no idea. It's Howard Zinn.
Right.
So,
right after 9/11.
Yeah. Wow. You've been around a while. I mean, I think I met you through, I was trying to remember if it was through Randy or through Joanne. But either way, I'm glad I did. I've learned a lot. I think Sam's just a phenomenal journalist. And he's, been, shakes things up at the State Department on a somewhat regular basis. And also, you may have also heard, let me pull this up, heard about Sam from this situation and where he was removed. Do you want to talk about this just for a second, Sam?
Sure. Very, very briefly. This was in Helsinki during the Trump-Putin summit in 2018, I want to say. And how do you get called on? That's the big quandary. So I had the bright idea of having a little sign that said nuclear weapon ban treaty to get called on because the group behind it had won the Nobel Prize and 122 countries were for this treaty to ban nuclear weapons, but neither Trump or Putin, the two countries primarily opposed to the treaty, were ever asked about it. So I wanted to hold up a piece of paper to do that. Some journalist snitched on me when he saw me make the sign. So security came up, took me out of the room, and one thing led to another. And then when I tried to show them the sign, just to say, I wasn't going to cause a protest. I just wanted to hold up a sign to try to get a question in. They sort of lost their cool and dragged me out of the room. So,
well, I found the video, but I decided not to play that because I think, we see these, whether it's you or Ray McGovern, or I know Jose Vega, who I invited. I guess he's not here tonight, but he's been forcibly removed from places. It's really kind of upsetting to watch that, to see journalists and candidates, anybody speaking up, like manhandled that way. But so I want to open up. I want everyone to just talk, ask questions. But I guess we'll start. Sam, do you want to really, while you're here, is to introduce. So anyway, unmute yourself at any point to jump in and talk if you like. And I'm going to pull up the Vote Pact flyer here.
I want to talk about Vote Pact, and I want to channel my State Department work in two ways. One way is that I challenge myself to jump into the water when I go to the State Department, and that's what I'm challenging people to do with my Vote Pact project. And I also want tough questions about Vote Pact. So please feel free to ask me tough questions because I think it is robust in not obvious ways. The basic idea is that, the basic insight is that virtually no third party has gained traction in a very long time, and that's because of the power of the duopoly. It's a hate-driven system, and it keeps people cloistered on Team Red or Team Blue, and people don't, for the most part, even consider voting for another option, even another option that they agree with overwhelmingly in terms of policy questions. You have people who are very close to me in some circumstances who work triple overtime to undermine the possibility for third-party victory for candidates that they completely agree with because they fear or loathe one or the other of the establishment candidates. So the idea behind Vote Pact is to form a new social relationship, basically, to get people to pair up, a would-be Trump voter and a would-be Harris voter, to pair up and both vote for third-party or independent candidates that they more genuinely believe in. In this campaign, it's easy to say it in terms of vote for a non-genocidal candidate. The obvious candidate is Jill Stein of the Green Party. But you also have the Libertarian Party with Chase Oliver. Those two parties happen to agree on a lot of things, as every people on this panel are well aware, in terms of civil liberties, war, some aspects of corporate power, and so on. So I hypothesize the existence basically of a radical center of U.S. Political life that hasn't been able to manifest itself because of the power of the duopoly, because of the mindset of lesser evilism, and you got to vote against the other candidate. And it manifests itself through a whole series of other things. So, for example, you have an entire media structure that's built up around this, MSNBC and CNN versus Fox. And it limits people cooperating and talking to each other. People unfriend people and so on, or avoid talking politics with them. Some people have noted that VotePact is sort of like do-it-yourself instant runoff voting, which people have advocated for. And I think that that's basically accurate, but VotePact has one advantage, in a sense, over instant runoff voting. It's do-it-yourself, so you don't have to wait around decades and decades for the establishment to sign off on a reform, which it probably won't do because it might be signing its own death warrant. But it also actively encourages people to actually be in contact and communication with people on the other side of the political divide, to find their political mirror image. So it fosters a more healthy attitude, because the establishment wants people to be isolated and depoliticized, so that they're not talking politics with people that they disagree with. And I don't presume that VotePact will make people necessarily agree on things. People, I think, should be mature about it and say, look, we disagree on this, this, and this, but we can agree that we want out of the duopoly, and we can both pledge to vote for anti-establishment candidates. I've generally advocated people doing this for people in their own life, and it works obviously best if they're in the same state. Thanks to Kelly and other people here, I got introduced to a fellow who set up a webpage, Break the Duopoly, who is pairing people up online. So that is another option for people. He actually learned about this strategy because Gary Johnson actually adopted this strategy, or I shouldn't say Gary Johnson, a group backing Gary Johnson in 2016, the Libertarian candidate, put out a very entertaining video talking about what they call the Balanced Rebellion. They basically rebranded my VotePact idea. At the time, I was incredibly insulted because they took my idea, wouldn't even drop me an email saying, thanks for your idea, we're going to take it. But people don't recall Gary Johnson, I think in large part thanks to the Balanced Rebellion, was the most successful third-party candidate since Perot. He outperformed every other candidate, including Ralph Nader. Most people think of Ralph Nader in 2000 as the most challenging third-party run. That's not true. Gary Johnson outperformed him both in terms of percentage and actual votes. So I think the potential, and this had no relation. Gary Johnson, I don't think he was even aware of this thing, or he never. When I talk about VotePact, I envision the campaign embracing it and getting endorsements in pairs. Imagine a retired union official and retired businessman or whatever, people who were opposed to each other on a lot of things, coming together and saying, we've been opposed to each other and we both voted for Team Red and Team Blue in the past, and now we're coming together behind this candidate. So that's the vision. Most people are telling me too late for this campaign. But I think that it's important to put it out there, and I don't in this viral age, I don't think that it's totally preposterous to think that this couldn't actually take off organically.
I'm a little bit confused as to what the actual. I get the theory. What is the action that takes place here? How does this actually work?
Sure.
Hey, Andrew, and how about this? When everybody goes to speak, introduce yourself. Let folks know who you are, where what party you're with, where you're located, so forth. Yeah.
Sure. I'm a libertarian. I'm running for U.S. Senate on the libertarian ticket, and I never heard about this thing with Gary Johnson. So I guess I'm just I'd love to be able to take advantage of something like that, but I don't know anything about it.
The Balanced Rebellion thing that backed Gary Johnson was they put out a very entertaining video with dead Abe Lincoln, character, and it was very, very well done, I gotta say. And they got like 37 million views on Facebook alone. And they got tons of pair-ups. I don't have, a numerical quantity, the number of pair-ups that they actually accomplished, but it was apparently substantial. So the idea is, a lot of people are already committed independent, or that they're going to vote libertarian or green or whatever. And this doesn't affect them directly, but it has them effectively as the seeds to make other people flip, especially if they're challenged. So the conversation would go something like this: why the hell are you voting for a candidate that has no choice? Well, why are you voting for a candidate that is backing genocide and perpetual war and civil liberties infringement? Well, because the other guy is worse. Well, why don't you pair up with somebody else on the other side and both vote for candidates that you believe in? So
I'm sorry, how does that actual pairing up take place? How does that actually work?
I've been advocating people finding somebody in their life, a debating partner, a relative, a neighbor, a coworker, whatever it is, or for the campaign to invest themselves in this and try to start pairing up people if they're, being contacted by people who are sort of on the fence, as it were, and pair them up. So like in this campaign, for example, the obvious thing would be to have Rashida Tlaib and Justin Amash, right? Pair up and both back, either, Jill Stein or Oliver of the Libertarian Party. People who have been associated with, or if Justin Amash, he's kind of slightly anti-Trump, so, Massey,
More than a little.
yeah, well, Massey say, I'm trying to grow out from the obvious people who are committed to independence and find people who are dissatisfied and start pairing them up so it ripples out. And then you can imagine, like a John Cusack, who's been, very critical of his policy towards Israel, but now he's like, we got to suck it up and we got to vote for Harris. If you get him to flip, and pair up with, I don't know, Clint Eastwood, so that, I want it to go organically, individuals that people here might know. And then, if we can get some assemblymen to do it, and then grow out from there, and then get more and more prominent people to do it until it becomes a force. And then you bring in the celebrity factor and the system can't ignore it. So that it's a new social relationship, the vote buddy, where, people can overcome their fear of the other and hatred by this bond that they have with this other person, and gradually the duopoly, which is it's only held up by hatred of the other, starts to crumble. That's the vision. Andrew, did I answer you or?
Yeah, kind of. I guess my question is, I've seen how people like Thomas Massey have at different times paired up with people like AOC,
That's correct.
and yet that seems to more or less affirm the two-party system as instead of allow room for any alternatives. It's kind of like it's almost like a vote to sustain the unsustainable, from my viewpoint.
Well, I mean, they'll pair up on individual things like
Right.
cutting military spending or something on civil liberties. And part of I think that those are good things. I think part of the problem is the way that those are constantly reported. There's a permanent a note of surprise whenever you see these left-right pairings. And they do occasionally get reported on in the media.
Sam, you're muffled a little bit, I think.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
No, you're fine now. It was just for a second. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe we talked about this in that meeting with Kat, that my feeling is that people are so polarized that, like, how many people even know other people that they're friends with? Or I mean, we're so divided, it's hard to imagine that kind of thing happening. But to your point about sort of like not waiting, like it's kind of a not waiting for the establishment to do something. I keep looking at the non-voter numbers, and I'm thinking that this kind of a tactic might be best done among talking to non-voters rather than waiting for people, like, even though, Massey and AOC or whatever Tlaib working together. And we saw that with the House Resolution 934, we had these people that you'd never think would speak to each other. We're on board with dropping the charges against Assange, but I think it's so rare. I don't know. I'm just wondering if there is something for candidates. And what do you guys think about this? Like, to tap into when you're on the ground campaigning, or even in trying to reach out to non-voters, that maybe that's where this could really take hold.
I would absolutely agree, Kelly. By the way, hello, Sam. I'm Phil Anderson. I'm running for Senate in Wisconsin, and I'm a libertarian, but I'm running under not the party line, but something called Disrupt the Corruption is the motto and what's going to be on the ballot. And the whole point of the campaign was to find people that had common cause against the duopoly on both theoretical sides of the aisle, right? And what I've run into is that there are people that support my campaign on certain issues, but they don't want to go to the same events sometimes. We were having peace rallies last year, and there were Green Party members who supported it, but then when they showed up to one, and I was the only libertarian there, the rest of it were peace activists from the so-called left. Because I was there, there were 3 people in the Green Party of Wisconsin that lost their officerships over just showing up to a rally with a libertarian at it.
Wow.
And that's probably the most egregious example, but everybody agrees when you're entering their sphere of their comfort zone, when you're going to them and talking about whatever issue it might be that we can all agree on. But when it comes to meeting in public or publicly addressing things. So I think, at least in my experience, this effort is valiant and beautiful in terms of personally doing it. But the farther it goes away from relationships that we all have as individuals with individual people, family members or whatever, the more entrenched people are, not only just politically or by their commitments, but by their actual feeling of belonging to something and their identification with a certain side, that becomes ever more increasingly hard to break. And I think that's the challenge of it.
I hear you. I mean, I think of this sort of as like elves and dwarves, coming together. They have to be so convinced that there is this evil that they better cooperate in some way and overcome their cultural and other policy frictions and so on.
That sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons reference. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's a Lord of the Rings reference.
Beautiful.
The humans are sort of in the middle, and then the elves and dwarves don't like each other, and they're constantly sniping, but they're on their way to destroy Mordor, which poses a threat to all of them. On the thing about non-voters, there's I just saw a clip the other day. I'll probably write a piece about it. Larry David who has a comedy skit, and he has a comedy skit where he and another guy are in line to vote, and they decide, why the hell are we in line? We're voting for opposite guys. We're just going to cancel each other out. Let's go have a beer. But I think that happens in real life. I think that there are probably couples that stay at home on election day because, one's a Democrat, one's a Republican. I do think that, Kelly raises a point that maybe people are so polarized that they don't know each other. But I think that might be overstated in that people, I think, sense that they disagree with somebody politically, but they need to have a decent personal relationship with them. So they kind of avoid talking politics because they don't want it to descend into an argument. And I'm trying to offer a way out of it descending into an argument. I'm trying to offer a way for it to be an opportunity to say, okay, we disagree. Let's be honest about what we disagree with, but maybe we can actually cooperate in this way. And we can both, in effect, gain our political freedom by relying on each other.
Well, with 80 million people not voting in 2020, that was, I guess not everyone is so political, but it does seem like the people that are paying attention are just so polarized. But I pulled this up really quickly just because I thought it was really interesting. This is just one study, September 2020, but it broke down like who are these non-voters? Like, 40% says the incapable non-voter lies between the apathetic and obstructed non-voter. So there may be the incapable non-voter may be interested in the political process, but is unable to vote due to personal reasons, transportation, illness, whatever. But then you've got, the rest here, 26% they're just not, they're interested, but they are just dissatisfied. So they're disengaged, right? And which is, I don't see that as much different from apathetic. So you've got basically, this is 80% of people that either need help getting, to the polls or just are disengaged. So I don't know. I'm just thinking that maybe that's a good way to do this in kind of a stealth way, like start talking to people that don't normally vote.
Yeah,
but
I
please,
think
everybody jump in, ask Sam questions.
I think that's something that third parties could do regardless of vote pattern. Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm Bill Kelsey. First, I was the Libertarian candidate against Mike McCall, the major war criminal warmonger in Congress, head of the House or Foreign Relations Committee. I didn't pay the filing fee as part of the struggle against having to pay them. And the Secretary of State took me off the ballot. I've been replaced by a gentleman. There was a loophole where I could be replaced by a gentleman named Jeff Miller. And he'll be running against Mike McCall. And in future calls, Jeff Miller will be on. He couldn't get on it tonight. But I'd like to say that the vote trading concept that you discussed, we even need to try it out within the Libertarian Party, because even libertarians, as fanatical as we are, people start panicking. And in our libertarian spaces and our bulletin boards and Facebook arguments, there are libertarians who are going for Trump, and there are libertarians who are loudly going for Kamala Harris. We could pair those off as an experiment.
Well, Bill, I found something from when you were on before. It's 32 seconds. Check it out. It's basically what you said was vote pact.
I'm Bill Kelsey, and I would just ask people to look at our presidential candidate, Chase Oliver, and follow him and consider voting for the Libertarian candidate for president. And wherever you are, wherever you see this, look around in your neighborhood, look for Libertarian candidates. If there are no Libertarian candidates, or if the Libertarian candidate's a little bit of an edgelord, go for the green.
So, I mean, with all of you guys, libertarians and Greens, I mean, you have such similar battles, like with the ballot access stuff. I mean, I would think there is some more work that could be done together there. I mean, Chibo, you haven't really, you're the Green here. Do you have any thoughts on this idea?
Yes, actually. Hi, Sam. I'm Chibu Asonye. I'm from Illinois, or I'm in Illinois, and I'm for Congress, Illinois District 13. I'll be a write-in because the ballot restrictions in Illinois are so hard, and they don't want people to be great. So I have looked at VotePack, gone through the website, and looked into it, and I like the idea. Kelly, you said that it's a lot of non-voters, so that's really my bread and butter. Because I'm a write-in candidate and Illinois is a strong Democratic stronghold, and we're a D4 because of gerrymandering district, I'm actively pursuing non-voters, people who haven't voted in the last 3 to 4 cycles. So typically since 2016, I'm seeing a lot of people from Illinois, at least in my community. That was their last election that they voted in. And with VotePack in mind, I've partnered that in Illinois with ranked choice voting and say, if you this year, 2024, partner with someone and vote green, vote third party. Obviously, I want you all to vote green, or I encourage people to vote green in Illinois because that's my person. Then what you can get is ranked choice voting for 2028 and 2026. So I'm encouraging people to see it as there's multiple steps that are working in tandem with each other, but don't have to be at the exact same rate. And so this year, 2024, vote the way VotePack is trying it, and then you'll see the benefits in the next 5 to 10 years. It helps that I'm young, so I'm kind of like, I'm doing this and you can kind of do whatever. But yeah, non-voters, because in my community, both major parties actively discourage third parties. And then if you're progressive on the left, they want to silo you into the major left party, which is, I wouldn't call the Democratic Party left, but center.
Right.
Well, that's part of the challenge too, then, Sam, right? Is to get people to talk or to think about beyond this election cycle when they're forced into, this is the most important election of our lifetime. We cannot afford another 4 years of 6 years of, which really is obstructive to any of us trying to accomplish anything or making our vote or our candidacies of value to those categories of non-voters.
Yeah. I think that's what's so exasperating to so many of us, right? This refusal of people to want to build anything, right? The refusal to accept other than the consequences right now and live with them rather than to build something. But Ted, I want to make sure you got in here too.
Basically, I do like the idea with about the people pairing off like that. I hate to be a cynical type or anything, but I would kind of worry about, it's like Reagan used to say, trust but verify. And it'd be kind of hard to, whether people are going to be keeping up their end of the bargain on this. It's sort of like, well, sure, I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to vote for Kamala, or I'm not going to vote for Trump. Wink, wink, wink. And mess up the whole system there. I would like to think it could work, and I generally trust people, but I would worry a little bit about that because of the just how people get so crazy about their politics on the team red and team blue. How it might be difficult to sign up people who really are normally active in those parties or normally vote in those parties. The part about non-voters is probably the best bet on that. If it's not people that you actually know in your, personal relationships, to organize this in a, overall coordinated fashion, I think the non-voters are your best bet because they're not the major team red and team blue people that are so rabid these days with different views of perceptions of reality, shall we say. Society is just so divided.
I'm glad you're the one who said that, because I was kind of trying to keep quiet on this. I've actually been stabbed in the back trying to do this before, as many libertarians in Indiana have. We might have an unusual situation here where only libertarians are allowed on the ballot as far as third-party candidates. We don't have anybody else that makes it on the ballot. And we have automatic ballot access since 1994. So yeah, and it's been hard to maintain that. So it's been something we have to work at, because they tie it to the Secretary of State's race, which is not really an ideological position, but that's where we have to put all of our efforts every 4 years. And so we don't have, we've tried to contact Greens and we've tried to contact the Constitution Party. I mean, I've done this personally, but they've actually gotten very discouraged and they're essentially disbanded. There's like no activity in Indiana. And in fact, that discouragement kind of goes to voters too, apparently. We're number one in the United States in terms of non-voters. I mean, we have the lowest percentage of voters now. But I guess I guess in relationship to this, we've tried to do that pairing thing, with more notable people. And I personally have been stabbed in the back by, pretty notable people, Mike Pence, in fact. So it's very frustrating because, well, our political part. I mean, our founders warned us against political parties. They very specifically warned us against having only two, because of course it's inherently divisive. And the fact that it's also unconstitutional. I've tried to sue the state over the unconstitutionality of this, where we actually, by Indiana code, we have 6 different categories of human for ballot access. Whether which party you're in. I mean, there are separate laws for Republicans, separate laws for Democrats, separate laws for Libertarians, and then it goes down the line as to what percentage you get in the previous Secretary of State's race. And because we tie it to the Secretary of State's race, it's impossible for independent candidates to ever get like permanent ballot access. So it's we have legal and so-called legal. It's all unconstitutional, so therefore illegal. But we have these impediments in Indiana code that have set people against each other, and kind of enforced, even to the point where in Indiana code there are only 2 what they call major political parties, MPPs, by law, and there can only be 2, and it's invariable. And so I love your idea. I'm just thinking that it's frustratingly difficult to try to do it when so many people are thinking strategically about how am I actually going to stay a precinct committee person if they find out that I'm backing a libertarian, and all of those things, like what Phil was talking about, where or you just show up someplace, they see you with somebody else, and then you're banned. And it's very difficult to overcome this tribalism and this kind of body-painted dancing around the tribal drums nonsense that we do every election season.
Plus, can't you just hear in Sean Hannity's voice him saying that Vote Pact is a leftist plot? And you totally hear it, right?
Oh, yeah.
In his annoying voice.
Yeah.
I mostly hear about it as a right-wing plot because people
either way, that illustrates the point, I guess.
Yeah, right. But a couple of things, if I could. I mean, the whole trust issue. I'm not surprised that political apparatchiks are not trustworthy. I'm more talking about normal people, and ideally people who have a relationship with someone. You let a relative take care of your kid or something. Presumably you have something of a bond, that there's a trust factor there. One fairly foolproof way to do it is to both ask for absentee ballots and fill them out together and walk them to the post office together and videotape it so that other people do the same thing.
Well, some places have a lot of voter suppression, like in Texas. It's almost impossible to get an absentee ballot unless you're elderly or in the hospital or something. They try to stop people from voting as much as possible in Texas. I don't know about other states.
Yeah, it's always been easy for me in Maryland or in New York. But okay, that's interesting to know.
Chico, you look like you wanted to say something about that. Did you? No. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, me.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Okay, I just wanted to say that this whole controversy is especially being played out in the Arab American community and the Jewish Voice for Peace community, because they are having a real hard time and debating bitterly among themselves about whether to vote for Kamala Harris and how much to oppose her or how much to give their semi non-support. It's a fascinating discussion. I'd like to encourage all the fellow panelists to keep Palestine in your heart. I grew up in Amman. I think my parents knew your parents, Sam. Palestine's the main reason I'm a libertarian. The state has no right to choose my friends and enemies for me.
Wow, I didn't know you knew each other. I knew you were there. Wow. Or you knew Sam's family? Is that what you said, Phil?
Yeah, I think you grew up in Amman your first 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was in Amman from 56 to 67 and partly in Beirut. So I grew up around Palestinians. They took care of me as a kid.
Okay.
Taught me to raise pigeons, fly kites.
Okay.
We've corresponded on Facebook.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, the clear issue in terms of the collusion of the duopoly, right? You had, Trump today being introduced by Miriam Adelson, and you've had, Harris completely back everything that Biden's done. So I've tried hard to get VotePAC to take off, whatever contacts I have in Michigan and other places. I think most of the people that I connect with are already politically so, singular minded as to what they want. I think that even the people who are already backing Jill Stein kind of view VotePAC as a impurity or something, when what I'm trying to do is to have it grow so that it's not, I mean, I don't want Jill Stein to be another 1% candidate. It's going to further marginalize things if that happens. And I think that is going to happen unless some other dynamic changes. It could well make the difference in Michigan, and that could swing the election. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a good thing. I mean, the Green Party, I think, has sort of fallen into we want to be a spoiler because that's our only leverage, and I don't buy into that because I think Trump is terrible too. I actually think that there's a wider opportunity to actually not win and really grow up. If you tap into what I think is a widespread discontent with the duopoly, and I think you're right about non-voters. I mean, it's perfectly sensible to be a non-voter, right? The duopoly controls things; they're totally corrupt, and nobody else has a chance to win. So why the hell should I waste my time on any of this? Let me take care of my family and get out of my face. That's not an unreasonable thing. But if VotePAC were to say take off and you started to get a candidate get 5-10%, then I think the non-voters would say, hold on, something might actually change here. Okay, I will look at a system and participate in a process that might actually shift things and might actually not be this continual, you want, one flavor of corruption or another flavor of corruption.
Right.
Well, I have to jump off, but I want to say in parting, despite my pessimistic comments earlier, I'm all in, Sam. I am all in, and I will call out very gently and in a friendly way my fellow candidates on here who are already tilting at windmills, right? Already looking at something that's very unlikely to happen, and just add this to our arsenal as a way to talk to people and just continue to do the things that we do and push forward. And sooner or later, hopefully in our lifetimes, things will change for the better with all of this. And it might seem unlikely now, but I can't sleep on the way things are, and I don't think you guys can either, and that's why you're here.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil. Yeah, it didn't get this way overnight. Achivu, please.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As an optimist, I feel, as an optimist, ending on or going back on what Phil said, it is changing, and I'm not gonna lie, to toot my own horn, I feel like I'm a byproduct of that change. As the resident young person in this room, I've realized when I talk to my friends who are communists, who are socialists, who are I don't really have friends who are venture capitalists, but they work for venture capitalist firms and they make money. We all may politically identify as like different labels and different terms, but I have seen and I have witnessed better coalition building within our parties. And I will argue that at some point we're probably going to need to create like another named party that is totally new to make our lives easier and get rid of some of the gunk that comes with being a green, being a libertarian. But the last 2 years, I've gone close with the libertarians in my community, and you're right. Like a lot of people see it as like there's no point, and it's so hard. Even though libertarians in my community are still able to get on the ballot because of whateverness that they are able to do, at least president. And I'm really seeing that's like I do believe that coalition building is capable, and I'm seeing it. So PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation, is running their own candidate. I get that. Jill Stein is her own candidate. Cornel West, Chase Oliver, you are all different candidates this year. I believe in my goal in 2028 is to not have that, is to argue like rather than having that many presidential candidates, we create a cabinet that we can exemplify and say Claudia is this, Karina is this, Chase is this, whoever else is this, and other folks in the party, so that way we actually get to that reality. Because I literally have to live with the consequences of the next 420 years. Like I'm hoping to live that long, and I've seen what people have done previously, and I am seeing the reality that I do believe is coming into fruition. Again, I'm an optimist that likes practical solutions. Which is part of why I'm like ranked choice voting, vote pack, all these things. In Illinois, again, the ballot restrictions are so high. So we have to lower that, which is why I'm working with my state rep, the state rep in Illinois legislator to lower that ballot requirement, because it is, the Republicans have one like list and then the Democrats have another. And then you have like 13,000, which is impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. And they make it a different.
Keep changing it, right? I mean, they keep moving the goalposts every election. They keep changing it. So
they doubled the signature requirements in Indiana after Ross Perot for independent candidates. Doubled them. And that's where, we have one of the better state constitutions, but we have almost the worst. We have in the kind of the top 3 in terms of bad ballot access laws. But and I guess 2 things I wanted to mention. Is there any way I can get some kind of a written summary, Sam, of what it is you're proposing? I'd just like to, get myself a little bit more educated on it.
Yeah, send the
website or
PDF.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to get that. But then I guess I have to say too that libertarians in Indiana here, as far as libertarians like Big L, we're less than 2% of the population, but we've been getting close to 5%. I mean, I'm polling like over 5% right now for U.S. Senate, and we had a gubernatorial candidate who got 12% in the last election. So in terms of percentages, we're already in that realm where we're getting a lot of people who are not libertarians already. I mean, we've got coalitions going on, and I hesitate to say this because it's going to sound really bad, but Trump and his coalition building lately, where he got Tulsi Gabbard and obviously RFK Jr. to hop on his team, that is kind of at least there might be something happening where people are seeing that the 2-party system is a mess and we have to start doing something different. So I'm hoping, like it says in the Declaration of Independence, that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by opposing the forms to which they are accustomed. In other words, I hope that we've suffered enough, and we're ready to shake something up at this point.
Yeah, it's Matt, it's too late for a Meltzer clip, but I've got a great one of him saying basically that as long as people are too comfortable,
Right.
you know, they're not going to change these things. But I think there's a lot of hope here. Maybe there's more that can be done like between elections, you know, when all this sort of dies down and people aren't so, you know, at each other's throat. But it's going to require, like, I know that, I mean, there was an issue that came up recently. I think it had to do with just capitalism in general. Like, you get a green and a libertarian talking about that. You're not going to agree on everything, but we have to be grown-ups at some point. Yeah, but like have these conversations and steer away from all of the hot button issues that are constantly, you know, inflamed on the media, on social media and everything to highlight the differences. And I think doing something like this, yeah, kind of on the down low in between elections and build it and talk to non-voters is what I don't know. That's what I'm thinking has a big.
Well, there's one other thing that I'll shut up because I'm going to have to leave pretty soon too. But I think one of the things that you guys were talking about before were people, you know, it's not apathy. It's more, there's a term for it, rational ignorance, where people decide that they are incapable of making any effect on this political system, so they choose to just stay the heck out of it. And you know, I don't even want to hear it. I can't do anything about it. And those are the people I would think would be the most. I mean, it's not apathy. They're probably genuinely angry and disgusted enough that they're blocking this stuff out. And I think those are the ones who probably would be the most fertile ground for some kind of, I don't know, coming together and reaching out and you know, just saying this is your government. We have what we choose. We just need to make some better choices.
Right. I think the establishment is so well aware of this discontentment, and I think that's why you have, you know, like Obama coming in from the left and posing as anti-establishment and then sucking the left back into the establishment, and Trump kind of did the same thing from the right, where he poses against the establishment, and I say he's the opposable thumb of the establishment. He pretends to be against it, but he just helps it grab more. And I think you kind of had a variation of that. I spent a lot of time during COVID on pandemic origins, and I was sort of outcast from parts of the left because I took it seriously that it could have come out of a lab. And so I watched RFK very closely, and he played, I think, a very monomaniacal role, and where he took all of the dissent from the pandemic, some of which was very legitimate. I think some of what he says is ridiculous, but some of it was very legitimate. And he sort of took it and then flipped it pro-Israel and now pro-Trump. So it was a very insidious game. And I think that Trump and him have some of the same billionaire funders as part of it. But it's these constant things where much of the public keeps wanting something refreshing and different and outside the establishment, and these various players keep feeding back into the duopoly.
And that's why when you call them out early, especially people that are big fans of, say, I encountered this with Gabbard fans and RFK Jr. fans, they get very angry with you if you point out, like, hey, I don't know if I trust this, you know. But I just see that happening over and over again, just like you described, Sam. But okay, we are at the top of the hour. That's your 9 minutes. Oh wait, we have some echoing here. So I don't know. I guess we'll just wrap up and we'll go around, and you can tell everybody where to find you. And yeah, I just hope we can keep working on this. It's you know, it's got to change. It didn't get this way overnight, right? 40, 50 years of our hands off the wheel. So we got to get in there and get to work. Yes. So, okay, we'll start with you, Ted.
Yes. So again, Ted Brown, Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senator from Texas, www.tedbrown.org. And I'm running against Ted Cruz. I'm the better Ted in the race. And the Democrat is Colin Allred. It's just the three of us. My polling is sometimes I'm polled and sometimes I'm not. I'm known as others sometimes. but it's between 2.5 and 5% sometimes, and it's a very close race. Those guys are within the margin of error in the mid 40s there, so might have an effect on this race. So we will see.
Okay, Chibu.
Yeah. Again, I'm Chibu Sonye. I'm a write-in candidate for Illinois District 13 with the Green Party. And I want to say two things. One, you can find me at chibuforcongress.nationbuilder.com and at Chibu for Illinois across the social media. The second thing is a next step that I've committed to after the election is attending the Workers Strike Back February, all community conference thing that's going to happen at some point, probably virtually, but hopefully in person. If you haven't heard about it, please look into it. It's a way for the left, for the larger pro-worker, anti-war, anti-genocide coalition to create those steps, brainstorm together and then do concrete things and concrete actions. And so I'd love to see all of you all there, but that's another way and another next step outside of this.
Okay, Andrew?
I'm Andy Horning. I do not have Chibu's youth or enthusiasm, but I wish I did. So I'm easy to find, horningforsenate.com. I'm easy to find on Facebook, Twitter, all of that stuff. Just, look under my name. I have a podcast I've done on the Constitution on Rumble. My book, Relighting the Torch, is on Amazon. You can get, audiobook or print copies or what do you call the other one? Kindle edition. And that's pretty much it. I'm like I said, I'm going to try to acquire the youth and enthusiasm of Chibu, but I'm going to have to work with what I have for at least this election cycle. So, and good to talk to all of you. Thank you.
Okay, Bill?
Hi. My website is still Kelsey for Congress, although I'm not really in the running this time, but it still says how libertarians think and so forth. I'd like to point out that I'm also very active or lending a lot of my energy to an organization called Israel Palestinian Combatants for Peace. And it's almost like VotePAC. Palestinian fighters and Israeli fighters together agree that nonviolence is the first step, and they're stepping out of it. Now, they probably have as much influence on the situation as libertarians and Greens do in the States, but I think they are a light in the darkness. And along with VotePAC, along with Green, along with libertarians, I hope people look at this organization, Combatants for Peace.
Okay, Sam.
Votepac.org is most recent writings on that. I also write on Substack, and that's Husseini.substack.com. And I am pretty active on Twitter, including at under my own name and as VotePact. So at VotePact on Twitter. That's how I mostly get stuff out.
Yeah, definitely check out Sam's Substack. You're constantly writing really great pieces that cut through the BS. So, okay. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.
I think we'll just keep building on this. So,
thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks everyone.
Good night.
Thanks.
Bye.